Casey.
Fly from Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Thank you for your cooperation.
Aww. Hi. Hi, Casey. Where's Daddy? Daddy's out getting the luggage. Forgot to charge up my battery, so I'm doing that now. Okay, Tam. Hi.
Here.
So how was your first plane ride?
Fine.
Yeah?
Loaded.
Good. We're at London. Heathrow? Look at the taxi cab. We're going to take the Airbus downtown. We're now in London at Buckingham Palace. Those guards should do something here pretty soon again. This is our bed and breakfast. We stayed in the first 2 nights in London. One of the row houses. That's a tomato plant on her front porch. There's Tammy. Hey, Tam. That's a good point. No, I didn't. Just take a look at where the doorknobs are, right in the middle of the door. I noticed that is a tomato plant, too. What?
4 levels to the house.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I don't know how many rooms does she have? 4 rooms, I think.
That she rents out, but I'm not sure exactly how many total rooms there is.
So there's one for her daughter and one for her.
At least 6 bedrooms.
Yeah. And then this is down the other side of the street. Here we're at Victoria Station. Station number 5, way to go to Kensington.
Well,
Marble Arch we're at, Hyde Park.
Scared me to death. I turned around and went there and I can't find you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're at the American Burger in London on Oxford Street. It's our main shopping area. See all the see all the buses. Oh, maybe not yet as well. Hold on, I'll find them. There's another one. There's buses continuously coming and going in every direction. Notice how close the cars are together when they're driving. Driving on the wrong side of the street. Another bus. Another bus. Buses all the time, as I said earlier. A lot of people.
This used to
are. Nice to see pictures of them.
Get ready. Let me zoom in on you.
What?
I'm zooming in.
Here I am.
They're bigger than what you think, aren't they? Now getting down. Trafalgar Square.
September 1996.
What day is it?
I don't know. 19th.
September 19th?
That day's Thursday. We left the 18th on Wednesday.
Today's Friday, dear.
Good Friday?
Yeah.
Lost today.
At the end of the street is Buckingham Palace. Let me turn around now. Grass.
Grass.
I know.
And there's no lines in the road. You might want to point that out on the video. There's a mall.
There's the mall again. Now we're walking on the other side of the street in St. James Park. This looks like something out of an old movie or what?
Give me a video.
Notice these old benches. Again, at the end of that street is Buckingham Palace. Look at all these ducks. Again, this is St. James Park. It's the place we just came from, and then this is the entrance of St. James Park. Okay, there's the bathroom. Let's go.
Twice it's not called that.
A little bit closer again to Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace. This is walking in the front door of our bed and breakfast. Got one room here. And this is the room we stayed in. This is my bed. And this was Tammy's. A little sink in here. Now going back out the door. Go upstairs. This was our bathtub. Look out the window. Walking back down. I think that's our hostess coming in the door. Maybe not, I thought I heard her outside. Going back down. Right there is the toilet. One small toilet. This is our payphone. Go around these steps. The bottom of the steps. Our kitchen area. This is the living quarters, or the dining, or the family room.
Your love keeps lifting me higher and higher by Jackie Wilson. Number 7, Wild at 6, having moved up just one notch, Jay and the Techniques.
This is the fridge. And a small patio out back. That's it. You're fine. Okay, here we go. And this is Bridget, our host.
Hostess.
Hostess.
Yes, with the
Excuse me.
mustache.
Yes.
So there we are.
Very good.
Well, you have a nice time now.
Well, thank you. We will. Back at Buckingham Palace. like
Are you
forever
still
being
living here?
children.
Yeah.
Princess Philippa. Yeah, this is all grown. But they can't be there. They'll be over here.
Nhưng mà người thì sáng kia người cũng phải rất là
Yeah, I'm getting those things. They zoom in. Westminster Abbey. Again, Westminster. This is the side of Westminster. You saw the front earlier. There's Big Ben. And we're on the other side of Big Ben. It's a shame they're doing all this construction. The building is called the Horse Guard. You can notice there's 2 guards on horses on either entrance there. And this is the Minister of Defense building. And beyond is the River Thames, St. Paul's Cathedral. Look at these doors.
What's it? Lucha.
Look how big these doors are. Wow. And now the top of St. Paul's. Oh my goodness. Tammy thinks this thing's moving. Now, see that tower over there? Clear over with the blue on it?
Yeah.
Okay, now look.
I
You might be able to
Over
see, yeah, on the bridge.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I
That's
see.
Tower Bridge. And oh, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, we'll go around from this side.
Can you go around from that side?
at the Tower of London, across the street.
Did you know any history on this book?
Just from what I like, a little bit that I read.
Wasn't very good, was it? Try it once more. If it's not a lot louder, I'm going home. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tower of London. Thank you. Start off at the top and you're going down again. Now, my name is Tom Sharp. I'm one of the 40 yeoman warders, or, as you like to call us, beefeaters of the Tower of London. And what I would like to do for the next hour is take you on a conducted tour around this wonderful old fortress, point out some of its more interesting buildings, and tell you just a little of its 918-year history. So, you'll actually receive nearly 1,000 years of culture in 1 hour, which, believe me, is a lot to learn. Now, to begin our story, we go back to the year 1066. You all know what happened then, don't you?
Yes.
1066 was the year of the Norman invasion. It was then that a man by the name of William, Duke of Normandy, came across to England from France, and he defeated his cousin, the Saxon King Harold, at the Battle of Hastings. As we all know, Harold was killed by an arrow piercing his eye. William then became King of England, and he was crowned King William I on Christmas Day 1066 down in Westminster Abbey. Today, we know him better as William the Conqueror. You all heard of him? Little lights going on, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Good. William was part French. In those days, the English and the French were not the best of friends. What a lot changes, really. William spent 12 years from 1066 through until 1078, touring around this country of ours, looking for a safe place where he could both live and govern these unruly Englishmen from. And eventually, he found this site here, just to the east of the old city of London. It was here that a Roman fortress had once stood. And having acquired this prime piece of real estate, William ordered one of his monks by the name of Gundulf to build him a tower. Now that is the tower that stands today in the center of our complex. We'll see it later on as we're walking around. Over the following 200 years, the kings and queens of England who lived here extended the defences. They built an inner and an outer ballium or defence wall. Around the inner wall, they built 13 defensive towers. And around this outer wall here, they built 6 defensive towers. So the Tower of London is not just one tower, it's a total of...
Oh, boy.
35.
I really am wasting my time, aren't I, eh? 20 towers. You've been counting them on your little map, haven't you? You haven't been listening to what I'm saying.
I was wondering if that's your picture, but it's not.
No, it isn't. Now listen, before we go any further, let me remind you that at the end of this guided tour, there will be a written test. Anybody who fails will come back here and we'll start all over again. Okay? You have been warned. 20 towers, strangely enough, none of them called the Tower of London. There is no such tower as such. It's the whole complex. that is known as the Tower of London. Each of the 20 has its own individual name. Before I start telling you some of these names, I would like you please to all turn round and face that way. Now look up on the skyline slightly to your left. There you see a white building with a lot of statues on it. Can you all see that? Yeah. Can you all see it? Yes! Good! That is the Port of London Authority building. It was constructed for use by the people who were responsible for the shipping Sea Green. It's on Tower Hill. Now that garden has every connection with this Tower of London, because that was the site of the first permanent public execution scaffold, upon which many hundreds of people were to lose their heads by way of the executioner's block and axe. During the guided tour, I refer quite often to Tower Hill. So every time you hear those two words, you'll know I mean that little garden in front of the building just up there where the execution site was. Okay? Tower Hill. Let's, however, go back to the Tower of London itself. Now, the first tower you passed under as you entered was this one here, known as the Middle Tower. It's so named because originally this tower stood in the middle of the moat or ditch that surrounds the Tower of London. We then move on inwards to your left and find the Byward Tower. You will notice some of the windows here have a grille or grating in front of them. That tells you immediately that this tower, like all others throughout our complex, has been used in the past as a prison for high-ranking noblemen. The archway of this Byward Tower contains one of our Norman drop gates, or portcullis. As we enter that archway in a few minutes, look up and you will see the spikes at the bottom of this drop gate. The gate is more than 670 years old. It weighs in excess of 1.5 tons. It is still in perfect working order. The only thing we are not too certain about is the age of the rope that holds the gate up. So when we walk through there, you will notice I don't stop directly beneath the metal-clad spikes of the gate, nor do I make any loud noises that may occasion that old rope to vibrate and snap and send the gate crashing down on some poor unfortunate colonial. Follow me. Now, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, between the inner and outer ballium or defence wall. This inner wall here is 50 feet high. The outer one we've just walked through, 25 feet thick. So in its day, this really was quite an impressive little fortress. It was often attacked, but never successfully captured. The little road along here we know as Mint Street. It's so named because it was here until the year 1810 that the Royal Mint had its offices and workshops. This is where all the money for this country was manufactured and stored. These buildings, which house the Royal Mint and are known as casemates, nowadays in the majority form residences for some of my colleagues. If you turn yourselves around, you will see there a taller, narrower archway than London. They always used the River Thames as their main highway. So anybody of importance who wished to visit the tower would sail down river on a boat or a barge, stopping off on the Tower Wharf. They would cross the moat via a small drawbridge and enter through those 700-year-old gates that you see in that archway there. It was there that King Henry VIII so lovingly greeted the young lady who was later to become his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Remember that name? It crops up many times during this little talk, and it is also the answer to question 3 on the test paper at the end. Henry put his arms around Anne Boleyn. He kissed her on both cheeks, and he promised to look after her for the rest of her life. He did. He did. I mean, you must give him that. He was a man of his word. Here in front of you, the bell tower, so named because of the small white box at the top that contains the oldest surviving curfew bell in London. Now, the bell tower is the strongest of the 13 around the inner wall. The walls of this tower are 11 feet thick at the bottom, and they taper to 8 feet at the top. Contained inside here are 2 small circular prison chambers, one on top of the other. It was in the lower bell chamber, behind these little arrow loops here, that a man by the name of Sir Thomas More, the one-time Lord High Chancellor of England, was held prisoner on the orders of Henry VIII. During the time that Thomas More was in the lower chamber, his great friend John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, was being held prisoner in the upper chamber. Both of these men suffered terribly during their imprisonment inside this bell tower, until, after a period of 14 months, they were taken outside to Tower Hill and publicly beheaded. Their only crime was refusing to sign the Act of Supremacy. This was an Act of Parliament designed to make King Henry VIII the head of the church here in England after he broke away from the Roman Catholic Church in Rome. 400 years after the execution of these 2 men, in the year 1935, they were both canonized. In other words, they were made into saints in the Roman Catholic faith. They were not, as one lady suggested a number of years ago, stuffed into the end of a cannon and fired out over the return. It's not canonization, believe me. However, it's a little bit. Boys, in Water Lane, opposite probably the most notorious gate in the world, the Traitor's Gate. And I must here apologize to our American cousins. Now, you have very little history of your own, do you? Seriously. Only a couple of 100 years, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Never known as the Traitor's Gate. It used to be known as the Watergate.
Cute.
So, we had one of these before Tricky Dicky was ever born, believe me. Built during the reign of King Edward I, the gate was designed as an entry point for stores and prisoners. Remember, I've mentioned how dangerous the streets of the city were in those days? Well, it wasn't uncommon for the king's trains to be attacked, all the stores stolen, and the prisoners set free. To overcome this problem, they started to use the River Thames as their main highway, but they also needed an access point into the Tower of London. Hence, the gate leading directly onto the water of the river, the Watergate. The name changed over the years from Watergate to Traitor's Gate because of all the people that were brought in through here accused of treason. Through here came such people as Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, the uncrowned Queen of 9 Days, Princess Elizabeth, who later became Elizabeth I, Sir Thomas More, John Fisher, Archbishop Cranmer. In fact, hundreds of people entered through the Traitor's Gate. They were met at the top of the steps here by the yeoman jailer. He would escort them in and distribute them around the various towers that were to serve as their prisons. There, these unfortunates awaited whatever fate had in store for them. In most cases, their fate was to be but a short walk out onto Tower Hill to meet death by way of the axe. Hundreds came in this way, but very few ever went out that way. Those that did leave via Traitor's Gate, we sent them down to Rotherhithe, just 1 mile downriver from here, where they were packed into ships and transported off to the Antipodes. Which, for those of you who know no better, is, of course, Australia. Don't have any here, do we? Do we? That a tower be built above that gate to protect it. That being done, the tower was dedicated to the memory of Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, who was murdered on the steps of his cathedral on the 29th of December, 1170. St. Thomas's Tower today is part of the medieval palace, The entrance being via the stone stairway here to your right. Inside there, you'll see some of my colleagues and some costumed interpreters who will gladly answer any questions you may have about life in the court of the king in the 13th century. From there, you cross over this little Salvin bridge here and into the Wakefield Tower. Built during the reign of King Henry III, this was the king's private reception room. It was behind the larger windows there that the king would greet all his important guests. May 21st, 1471, that King Henry VI was murdered. He was his prayers. From the Wakefield Tower, you then climb a spiral stairway and on to the wall walk south. A walk along the southern walls of the inner part of the tower, and from there you get some excellent uninterrupted views of Tower Bridge. So if you want a good shot of Tower Bridge, go through the palace and up onto the south wall. Behind you is the Bloody Tower. This is probably the best known of all 20 throughout this whole complex. Now, the name changed to the Tower of Blood because of all the crimes and murders that took place within its walls. That Tower of Blood subsequently became the Bloody Tower. It was in there that Sir Thomas Overbury was poisoned. You know, they tried 24 different concoctions of poison to dispatch him to the other side. He didn't want to go. But they tried arsenic, strychnine, cyanide, deadly nightshade, powdered glass. There's a rumour they tried English coffee, but you know more about that than I do. You don't like English coffee, do you?
Might do my own.
Yeah. Good. It was in there that George Jeffreys, the notorious hanging judge after the Monmouth Rebellion, managed to do something I've been trying to do for the past 56 years. He drank himself to death on expensive French brandy. But seriously, of all the crimes that took place therein, probably the best known of them was the murder of the two young princes in 1483, a crime which to this day has not been satisfactorily solved. The two princes were Edward V and his younger brother, Richard, the Duke of York. Now, Edward was King of England. He was 12 years of age, far too young to rule this country effectively. The two boys had an uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. The uncle was running the country in the name of the young king. It was the uncle's decision that the boys should be brought in here for their own safety. He promised to look after them, and he promised to teach the young king his royal duties. So the boys were brought in, and they were last seen going into that Bloody Tower. Overnight, they disappeared. They were found 191 years later, by which time, unfortunately, too late. Their bodies were discovered buried underneath a stairway to the south of the big tower in the centre during the reign of King Charles II. On the orders of the king, these remains were taken down to Westminster Abbey and buried in Innocents' Corner, where they lie to this day. Who killed them, or upon whose orders they were killed, nobody knows for certain. Some people blame...
But she has to This is at the bottom of the Bloody Tower.
Including our own private little pub. Out there, anybody could lose their head for a multitude of crimes. This was exclusive. It was so exclusive that to lose your head on that spot there, you had to be a very good friend of the king or queen. Contrary to popular belief, there were only ever 6 official beheadings here on the private scaffold. Of those, 5 were ladies. 1 was a man. So I'm afraid, girls, The odds are against you. Most of you have nothing to fear. 80% of the ladies beheaded there had red hair. 4 out of 5. Now you're quite safe. It all started in 1536 with the second wife of Henry VIII, who we now all know to be Anne Boleyn. Anne was accused of treason, witchcraft and adultery. Today we know the only reason she died, she couldn't bear a son and heir for the king. Anne was terrified of the act. At great personal expense, Henry VIII imported a swordsman from France to do the job for him. Right up to the moment of execution, nobody actually thought that the sentence would be carried out, and so no provision was made for a funeral. They had no coffin. Immediately after the Queen lost her head, they searched desperately for something to bury her in. All they could find was an arrow chest, 4 feet 6 inches long. The Queen's body was placed in that chest, but there was not enough room to replace the head on the shoulders. So where did they put it? Underneath her arm. That gave rise to a popular English children's song, with her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. It also gave film producers a good opportunity of how to easily depict somebody who had died. The ghosts all walked around after that with their heads under their arms. That's where it came from, too. 5 years later, in 1541, it was Margaret Pole, a 71-year-old Countess of Salisbury. She was an aunt of Cardinal Reginald Pole, who was across in Europe, preaching against the king. The Cardinal refused to return to his country. The king could not get at him, so he did what he thought was the next best thing. He placed the mother on trial. She was found guilty of her son's alleged crime, and she was brought out here to a private scaffold for execution. She refused to kneel down. I will not kneel before you. I am innocent, she said. So the axeman had to try and dispatch her when she was in the standing position. As he swung the axe, what did she do? She ran away. So Margaret Pole was actually chased around the green here by the axeman until eventually he caught her and chopped off her head. The stomach would be ripped open and all the vital organs would be torn out of the body and burned on a fire before the victim's eyes. After death, the body would be cut into 4 quarters and dispatched to 4 different parts of the country. The idea being, in the minds of every good Catholic, if the body were not united, the soul could not go to heaven. So they remained in purgatory forever and ever. That is hanging, drawing, and quartering. Later the same day, Catherine's lady-in-waiting, Jane, the Viscountess Rochford, also lost her head right here because she knew of the Queen's association with Culpeper. She just forgot to tell the king. Always tell the truth. 12 years later, in 1554, it was the turn of the young, beautiful 17-year-old Lady Jane Grey, the uncrowned Queen of 9 days. Lady Jane was caught up in a power struggle between her father-in-law, the Duke of Northumberland, and Mary Tudor, eldest daughter of Henry VIII. And then lastly, in 1601, the only man, Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex. Devereux was found guilty of treason and abandoning his army. He was sentenced to be publicly beheaded outside on Tower Hill. But when Devereux heard the verdict of the court, he sent a message to his friend, Queen Elizabeth I, asking for help. And she, like every good friend would, moved heaven and earth to help him. She managed, against all the odds, to get his site of execution moved from outside to inside the tower. It was a nice lady, wasn't it? known as the White Tower. Commenced in the year 1078, it was, for more than 500 years, the principal residence of the kings and queens of England. Today, on the northern side here, you can enter the Star Chamber, which has displays of suits of armour come to the Waterloo Barracks. Built in 1845 to house a garrison of 1,000 soldiers. Today, it's the home of the Crown Jewels and Royal Regalia. Hang on, we got that one wrong. William Wallace, of course. Played by Mel Gibson, right here. Very effectively, apart from the fact that William Wallace was never a Scot. We got that one wrong, didn't we? William Wallace came from Normandy and not Scotland. Poor old Mel, he didn't know that. The other important fact about the big tower, of course, is that it now holds the ladies and gentlemen's restroom. Poor old Wallace returned in the grave. At the far end of the Broad Walk, the headquarters of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, which is a small but very good regimental museum. If you then go down to your right, you will find on your left the new armories, and just beyond that, the Salt Tower. The Salt Tower gives you access to the East Wall Walk, where it allows you to walk along the east.
The Jewel House. Those are residences of the beefeaters. One of the ravens of the Tower of London.
Oh, what is eating? In fact, something that tied to the bench.
Oh yeah? Ew. I wouldn't try to take it away from him. You see the heart with the E in the middle.
The E contained the heart itself. She sang for Elizabeth.
Something said in scriptures that was from an Italian tutor to young Elizabeth, later Queen Elizabeth I. It's going up and going down. And this is where the beheading took place.
Então a cabeça às mulheres do Coitado. Aquelas que a gente monta lá. As duas, foi neste sítio.
As duas.
Cortaram a cabeça às duas mulheres do Coitado.
Inside the bloody pharaoh. This is Victoria Street. This is the Victoria Library. We're back at our B&B, grabbing our bags and heading for York. I'm going to show you the basement here. So that's the living room window. And that door down there is where they used to go during the war to hide from the bombs, and they'd sleep underneath the street. Now we're off to Heathrow. We're now on the Airbus heading out towards Heathrow, but going back to Victoria Station. The window's rather dirty.
Notice the road front. There's cars coming towards the front. One way that way and one way this way.
The road down there is Buckingham Palace Road, and that takes us down to Buckingham Palace. There's Victoria Station again. An apartment to let. On the other side, it's where the Queen keeps her horses. And on the other side of those trees is Buckingham Palace. But notice the fence all the way around the palace. To the palace garden. Bert. Where's that? There we go. This is Hyde Park. On the west end of Hyde Park is Kensington Palace, where Princess Di has an apartment. Notice Harrods, very expensive department store. the direction here. Let's to look left and look right.
You can also do it from this little stalk over here.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Okay? You can switch the radio on from there. You can also do it from there, but also from here as well. The red triangle is the hazard warning light. The button next to that is the demister for the rear screen. The 2 dials and the 2 levers are for your ventilation system.
Okay.
Okay? Apart from that, it's pretty straightforward.
Pardon me?
Apart from that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
When you start to drive.
Okay, great. I'd like to go in and use the toilet before I get going.
No problem.
Is that a problem?
When you drive out of here, if you pull up to the first red.
We're here at Heathrow, at Eurodollar. We just rented our car. Bert's going to be driving. I'll be back in a second. The wrong side of the car and of the road. So this is going to be interesting. She's done it before, so I guess I trust her. I hope. Now it's Tuesday morning and we are in York, up northern part of England. This is part of the old wall. And there's the door to the entrance to go up on the wall.
How much filling in over the centuries has occurred. And when we excavated, it's only the last 30 years, of course, we excavated from the bottom of the wall downwards, and to stop the earth collapsing, we put that cemented. The third wall to explain it is this one here. And this wall here was built around about the 13th, 14th century, and you're now actually standing.
I'm now standing on top of the wall in York. I'm going to show you the train station where we started out. It's all the train station. Go down here. Here I am along the wall again in front of the train station. Check this out, all kinds of buildings. You can look inside and see people work. More fun, they can look out and watch people walk the wall. Whoop. I just came down from the wall, down the steps over there, and I'm down by the river. This is on a different side from Minster. It really is too bad you can't smell it here. So you come out of the market area. Now we're back at our bed and breakfast. This is Ascot House. And then in the back there is the car park. And this is the back side. And there's the dining room where we have the breakfast each morning. Now I'm out driving around the countryside. Tammy's in town shopping. I'm coming into Ripon. Clear in the distance, you can see the castle. You notice all the stone fences, those are stone. Now I'm at Brigham Rock, where there's all kinds of rock formations. so pretty up here, and the air is wonderful. Now I'm going to go down into the town. Now keep in mind, this is a two-way street here. Now I'm on the other side of that small town. Now all the different sheep, it seems like, in the different fields have different colors marked on them. This guy's limping. Some are red, some are blue, some are green. And then just a short while later, just down the street, we have woods. I can't get over, so you better. That was a close one. Now we're in Cohenstoin. Okay, which way do I go? We'll try this way. Here's a different kind of sheep. And back to the fishermen. This is a trout fishing farm. Or trout farm, I guess you would say. Look at all those stone fences. Amazing. Down here is a little stream. it seems as if I'm in a valley. Now I can't tell if these are the long-haired sheep, what they were talking about, or if they're just have long hair and just need to be sheared. Okay, you guys have probably had enough sheep, so we'll wrap this up. He lied. This one's coming over to me. Maybe he thinks I'm going to feed him. Come here. He's like right in front of me. That's called Bolton Castle. It was built in the 14th century. It's made famous by Queen Mary of, Mary Queen of Scots' captivity here in 1568. And we still have the stone fences. This is back at Ascot House at night. And now we're inside. Just like that. And there is the Queen. And back here is our breakfast room. our sitting room, along with a fireplace. And back out to the main entrance. And our room is the very first room when you walk in the door. Hello! Aha! Oops. And this is our room. Very cozy, very Victorian. And our little bathroom. And that's about it.
Here we are in England. Bert is driving.
Hurry, there you are. Hurry. Oh, there's a car cut out. 100, got it?
Again, here we are in England. Bert is driving and we are approaching 100 miles an hour on the freeway.
Going 90. I know, it's the motorway.
The motorway, that's correct. It's very common here. There is no speed limit on the motorway anyway. Here she is doing 100. I think she's over 100.
Yeah, we are. We're over 100. Okay, better slow down now. I think this is the highlight of my trip, driving 100 miles an hour on the motorway. Now we're back to 85. The average speed is 85 to 90. At least that's my average speed.
And you pretty much keep up with the traffic too.
Yes, I do.
And you pass quite a few people.
True. I have had people pass me though going 90, 95.
Yeah, but not very nice.
That's true.
Not compared to what you have.
That's true. There's a sign over there. There's a typical sign, a roundabout. Maybe we can film another one a little bit later.
We got it. Get a straight shot, maybe.
It's gonna be hard. Sometimes the sun's shining like that. It's gonna be tough.
I fell asleep with my contacts at night.
You did?
Very pretty place. This is a typical truck. Notice the sign?
Another one. It's like it's tied down.
Yeah, it has a soft side.
A couple more coming up here.
Notice the plate on the cars. Actually, they're called, I can't think right now. It's gonna be horrible videotaping. Okay, here's another one. Yeah, let's go this video.
Roundabout. We're going out to Heathrow. Here's the sign right here.
Find the sign.
Right here. Yeah. I got it.
This part makes me very, very nervous. You have so many turns of people coming at you. So many roads going in different directions.
Okay, go ahead and turn. This is the roundabout.
But Bert is handling it quite well.
Oh, thank you. Sad is the M&M.
Bert's concentrating on driving. I'm concentrating on
Do you have it on?
not being nervous. Yes, I have it on. I got the one across the street. Yeah, these are too close.
Now we're getting ready to leave. Here's our airplane level.
Huge.
Ready to get on, Tim?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.